Hey everyone, welcome back to another part of Apologist. This is Ace Apologist, Ace Attorney. Last time I let you guys off, we were pretty much now going to recap what Berto just told us in the past episode about what happened in this interview, and if we don't prove that we don't prove there's another person that could have killed him, pretty much Severa's going to go to jail. And let's just say this much: I don't think shy girls do well in jail. Just my opinion. This is my humble opinion. Oh god. The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant. It was Vera who poured the coffee. She admitted as much herself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug. And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Clearly the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter. Now that still about him. Jesus Christ. Ah, shucks. You really think so? I believe this clarifies the situation that night. Very well, Mr. Justice, you may begin your final cross-examination. Alright. I still have one trump card left to play. I won't let this trial end until I use it. Now, he says something he said that's really suspicious, because he contradicted himself from his last piece of testimony. Which is when he said that nothing left, and he strictly said nothing. So he's 100% sure that nothing left. But we want to press this. Not one thing, you sure? Yep, sure can be. Well, with one exception. One exception? What? Journalist Spark Burchell does interview. Leave studio. End quote. Come on! It's a joke, get it? Not funny, I know, but still. Did something leave the studio that night? Why does that sound familiar? Where have I heard something like that before? Now that we've proven our witness is a comedian of sorts, I'd like to turn to our defense attorney before returning to testimony. Do you have any idea what, if anything, might have left the studio that night? Just one thing. I think one thing we might very well have left the studio that night, actually. A certain something that has vanished from the crime scene. By which you mean something other than our witness? Of course.
Don't tell me. Vera Misham.
Believe me, any comic relief I may provide is entirely unintentional. Then let's see what you got for us, Mr. Justice. Well, this thing wasn't that's in the crime, so I can't show you it. But I do have evidence that shows us it could have taken from the scene. This letterbox proves it. This is the only link between that studio and the outside world. A letterbox. What did Mr. Burchell just tell us? When he entered the studio on the night of the murder, the victim had just finished writing a letter. Yeah, I said that, and yeah, it was true. Furthermore, you went on to tell us that he put the letter in the yellow envelope and put it in his letterbox. Ah, but that very same letterbox was empty. In other words, that night the yellow envelope disappeared.
Ah yes, intriguing. So an envelope has disappeared from the scene of the crime. Of course, this changes nothing.
Huh? He has a point, Mr. Justice. What we're trying to figure out here is how the poison got in Mr. Miss Ham. Is it really important that this envelope the witness says he just saw disappeared? Well, if it did disappear, then something did leave that studio that night. That seems very important to me. Very well then, the witness will add this to his testimony. You got it.
I still think this fails to change anything, Herr Farhead.
I wouldn't be so sure. A letter disappeared from the crime scene that night. This is exactly the opening I've been looking for. And I think we want to press to this. Wait a minute. Trying to think here. Sorry about this. I'm trying to think here. And you witnessed her pouring the coffee? Of course I didn't witness it. When she came in with that tray, the coffee was already poured and steaming.
Let us not forget the defendant has admitted to pouring the coffee herself. I heard her statement. I poured, I served, and I killed.
The last part, I'm pretty sure she didn't say I killed. What?
The last part was just a little joke.
I don't think I'm going to get anywhere with his coffee mug. I need to find another weak spot in his case. Okay, I guess we could press this. Nothing could be more serious than an envelope disappearing from that studio, and you are hiding that fact from us. Yes, well, actually...
I don't argue the possibility that a letter disappeared from that studio, but her forehead, isn't there a much more serious question before us?
Right. How Mr. Misham was poisoned, I know. But Mr. Burstow's testimony has changed, which means the facts of the case have too. And what he told us means something entirely different from that. Different now. I'm starting to think. Let's keep thinking, Apollo. I'm gonna press this for a moment. I want to see something. You say clearly as though it were obvious. But this claim that the defendant poisoned the victim is merely conjecture. Ah, yes. Well, you see, in my business, it's all about making the most ridiculous things sound right. A bad habit, I know. Yes, well, actually, I guess there's more a case of ridiculous journalist sounds wrong, in quotes. The court is forced to agree with you. Please refrain from wild conjecture. Understood loud and clear. If only I could believe that. What do you think, Apollo? Everything he's saying seems so not flawed. Well, that's kind of what you want from a testimony, really. I need to keep my eye on matters. Okay, now I'm wasting time here, but I think you all know what needs to be presented here, because now you're saying that it could only have been her, but there's actually a possibility that something else could have actually poisoned him. So let's contradict him, shall we? Oh, never mind. You gotta go through this route first. You're sure about that? Well, to be really precise, I was busy gobbling Mick candies the whole time. One of those candies might have been poisoned.
Yet, at the time of the autopsy, no fresh fragrance of mint filled the room. And no mint residue was found.
So I'm just gonna punch myself. just punch. Just give myself a good punch. It was a long shot anyway.
Don't tell me you're still trying to prove this. You think the victim ate, drank, or otherwise ingested something other than coffee?
Well, Mr. Justice, if you have some proof, the possibility is there. I can feel it. Just maybe not prove it, not yet. And the possibility isn't going to cut it. Not now. Mr. Misham ingested the poison via route other than that coffee. I can prove it. Proof is possible. Here goes nothing. Air guitar.
You do understand what we need, yeah? Prove her forehead, not possibilities.
Of course. And Prosecutor Gavin, I hope you understand. I'm ready to give you that proof.
What did you say?
I have proof of the disappearing envelope. I saw him writing a letter. I did. Which was picked. Which was picked by the mailman, I assume. Sorry, I thought maybe Klavier was speaking at that point. I got so paranoid. Of course, which means that envelope had a stamp on it. A stamp? Ah. As we all know, stamps come with dry glue on the back. In order to use the glue, you have to wet it by licking the stamp.
Phew, no one worth talking to actually licks stamp in this day and age.
Even if you wanted to talk to him, you couldn't. He's dead after all.
Okay, so he licked the stamp. But wait! How does that explain the atroquinine on the rim of the coffee mug?
If he licked the back of the poison stamp, the poison would get on his tongue, yes? What would then happen if he were to put the mug to his mouth, Those traces on the mug were the killer's doing. It was the other way around. What? The coffee mug didn't poison Mr. Misham. Mr. Misham poisoned the coffee mug himself. Order, order! I will have a bacon, egg, and cheese. Hold the mail. But that does it? Recall, if you would. Atroquinine is a slow-acting poison, yes? The poison entered his body when he put the stamp on that envelope, but his time wasn't up until the very moment he touched his lips to that cup of joe. Why is he writing on his arm? It's getting kind of annoying. Here we go again. You have something to add, Mr. Burchell? Uh-oh, his nose is picking up another scent. As I believe I mentioned earlier. Well, that thing, you see, after he put his letter in the envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something. Yes, a stamp, a so-called postage stamp, end quote. But you know, I don't seem to remember him ever finding one. Maybe he just ran out.
Incidentally, we searched the desk drawer at the scene of the crime. There were no stamps. Not a single one.
Oh, this is becoming really bad for us. That does pose a problem. How will you prove that the stamp was coated with poison? Actually, I'm glad no other stamps were found. It makes proving the stamp you used was poison possible.
Good show, good show. You can even prove there was a stamp at the scene in the first place.
Well, let's hear what the defense has to say anyway. Where is your evidence that proves the existence of a poison stamp? As I said before, this tinted frame. Well, that certainly is a cute little frame, and by little, I mean really, really little. It was on the victim's desk, Your Honor. Quite empty, as you can see for yourself.
I noticed that too during my inspection. So what?
Apparently you weren't as observant as you should have been. You see, when you saw this frame, it was missing something quite important. Missing something? Yes, a pale bluish stain on the inside of the frame. Atroquinine residue.
What? Why wasn't I told about this?
The frame is only 2 inches square. The face of the frame is even smaller. Maybe even an inch wide at most.
You weren't saying.
Oh, but I am. Tell me, what fits in a small frame? A commemorative stamp, perhaps? Order, order, order! The poison stamp was in this frame? And the frame was in my mom? I mean...
Impossible!
I'm a horrible person. Prosecutor Gavin!
Why would he put something like that on his desk? Don't tell me he had it there so he could commit suicide if the mood struck.
You know, can I say something? I had a thought, see? What, Mr. Burchell? And please stop jittering around like that. The victim was a forger, right? There's a lot of money in that line of work. Forger forges friends, makes enemies too. End quote. So the poison stamp might have been a murder weapon aimed at him? Air guitar.
Oh, rich. That's rich. Leave the ridiculous flights of fancy to the governor's song lyrics, please.
Finally, something we agree on.
The stamp was a murder weapon? Nonsense. Murder is a simple business. Who would go to such lengths? No one.
Oh, I disagree.
Come again?
Recall, if you would, the victim's reclusive lifestyle. Drew Misham hid from the world. He avoided meetings. His only contact with the outside world was the mail. The mail? Now, if you wanted to kill someone you couldn't meet, but you knew read letters, a stamp would be the perfect weapon.
Ridiculous! Where's your proof? I want proof! Show us evidence that this poison stamp was sent to him as a murder weapon.
I might not have evidence, per se, but things are finally starting to come together. What is it, Apollo? Your fists are trembling. I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. I think I know how Mr. Misham was killed. Well, fill us in, Mr. Justice. A certain piece of evidence points to the truth, Your Honor. I can show you how someone with the intent to kill Mr. Misham I can show you how someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Misham the stamp of death, which I will show to the judge in the next part. Paul, this is Ace Attorney. Yes, I am a dick. Oh.